So I'm out here in the Northern Territory with my family. In fact, we've had to split in half. So I'm here with my son, my 15-year-old Sam, and we're in a small bush tent at Kings Creek Station. And then my wife and my other son, Hamish, and my daughter, Philippa, are over at the glamping tents. A little bit more sophisticated over at the glamping. They've got probably 3 times as much space, their own toilet and shower. Over here in the bush tents, it's just me and Sam. We do have a heater, and we'll see how the beds are. But it's certainly throwing up some challenges. My wife brought a particular book called The Money Mentor. The Money Mentor. And I glimpsed through this book, and my wife joined up to the program probably 2 years ago. And she was like, we are going to pay off our mortgage in 5 years. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I wasn't really paying much attention. And this was a false move. This was not a wise decision, not to be on board with something as important as family finances. I was dismissive of it. Now, no doubt, I had some stuff going on in my life that made me just unable to deal with that. Most likely that was the APRA notification. If you haven't been through that, then good luck focusing on everything else in your life. It tends to dominate it. And so in amongst all of this, my wife signs up for Infinity Finance and Money Mentor, Graham Home. And I mean, Graham's stuff is good. There's no doubt about it. His understanding of the banking system, his understanding of finances, his understanding of how money works is exceptional. Now, Graham is not for everybody. He comes across as a little harsh, a little out there, swears a lot, and also is dedicated to getting results for people, which is important to know. Now, this has been hard for my family because their advice to us, we didn't follow it. And it's probably cost us, I don't know, maybe $250,000 to $400,000. $250,000 to $400,000. No small amount of money because we didn't do what we were told. Now, this is an interesting challenge for me. I'm like, well, why didn't we do what we were told? This isn't the only thing that this comes up in. I pay a lot of money to another mentor to learn what he has learned. And expensive as it is, it's still just a drop in the ocean of how much it's truly cost him to learn this. He's been ruthless. He's been a true master entrepreneur. Estimated investment, $65 million. Cost for me to learn, 60,000 Australian dollars. Now, the 65 million was in US. So even if we forget about the 1.5 to 1 translation, whatever that is, the cross between Australian dollars and American dollars, basically my ability to spend $65 million is zero. I'm not going to be able to do that. And let alone the time that it took, 14 years, $65 million. And then the offer comes, well, will you put 1 year in and 60,000 Australian dollars to learn this? Now, I think this is a great deal. Because whatever went in to $65 million didn't all work. There's no way that it all worked. So there's a lot of errors there that had to be paid for. And that's the harsh reality of life, that many errors have to be paid for. But if you are buying from someone who has success, then that's what you're paying for. You're paying to skip out on all of the errors. Now, What's interesting with Infinity is we didn't follow the advice. Even though they've proven it over and over, just do as you're told. Now, what's the difference? What's the difference? Now, first of all, let's be very clear. I have failed to follow my other mentor's name is Garrett, his advice as well. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why do I pay money to not follow their advice? And the same thing's happened with my wife. Why has she paid money for our family not to follow their advice? And I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about it. And certainly with Garrett, I'm like, damn, you are such a crazy motherfucker. Like, you're out there. I'm not as aggressive. I'm not as full on. I'm not as intense. And therefore, that gave me an excuse to not do the work. I've been very clear for a while now that I have not been running advertising for graduate medicine. This makes no sense from a business perspective. If you're in business, you will recognize this. You're like, how do you expect to get leads in today's market? Now, yes, there is an organic reach, but it's relatively small. And only if you're willing to put money behind your message does the organic actually have an effect. If you're not aware of this, well, it became pay to play some time ago. Now, new social networks, yeah, they do it for a while where it's free, but they're trying to gain traction. But essentially, the social networks that have dominated the field for the last couple of years have been pretty established. Facebook, Instagram, even to a degree, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube. Beyond that, LinkedIn, yeah, LinkedIn for sure. LinkedIn's highly attractive for me. Why? Because the doctors are there. You guys are there on LinkedIn and probably on Facebook and Instagram. Probably not so much on TikTok, but nonetheless, all three of those major platforms, and let's include YouTube as well, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram are all pay to play. And yet I've not been putting money behind my message, despite Garrett's, what would you call it, advice? It's like, dude, you've got to build your lists. You've got to be able to take people from social media onto your list. You want people to put up their hands and say, you know what? I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. And this has been hard. Now, if you do want to hear from me, then your next step is to head over to GraduateMedicine.com and click on the link that goes to clinical certainty. Clinical certainty. You see, the interesting thing for me is that we've all got our own paths. Garrett's been on his path, and he's discovered things that I've been into for a while. And I have discovered things that he's been into for a while. But this acceleration of the path by learning from other people's investments, where they've put in 10, 100, 1,000 times more money, time, and effort to make the mistakes so that I can just jump on and go, this is what works. And you can just jump on and go, this is what works. This skill set to say, I'm going to submit my ego to someone who's found out a path that works. And that's really what this comes down to. My wife, myself, why have we not done things? Because we've not been willing to submit our egos. Now, our egos are tricky. It's not like I was like, you know what I'm going to do is spend a whole truckload of money and then not do what I'm told. That's not how it works. The ego is far more tricky than that. Particularly in the case of our family finances, I got a glimpse of it. I'm like, oh, the story that I was telling myself is we know better. We've had other training that said do this. And so when they said sell the properties, we were like, no, these are for cash flow. These are cash flow positive deals. And they're like, sell the properties so we can buy you more properties. And we can take your one property and turn it into two, and take your 2 into 4. And 4 into 8. And suddenly in 3 years, in this aggressively rising property market, you'll have 8 properties. But we didn't do that. And instead of that, we're stuck with still our to cash flow positive properties, which are no longer cash flow positive properties. Why? Because interest rates went up. We're like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Is it the end of the world? No. Is it a painful lesson? Yes. Is there a message here for you? Yes, there is. Number one, find out what has been successful for other people and pay for it. You're not going to have a better option than this. Your other option is that you go and learn it and pay all the money. You pay all the money, invest all the time to get to the same place that you can buy at pennies on the dollar. Literally, let's have a look at the numbers with Wake Up Warrior. $65 million invested. I'm paying $60,000. That's like 1 in 1,000. For every dollar I put in, I get $1,000 worth of value. And I'm basically buying 14 years of experience for the price of one. Now you can do the same. You can do the same. You can come to me and say, right, I'm going to join Clinical Certainty and leverage Tom's experience. Because unless you've been on this path, and you may not have, you may have been chipping away, doing your thing, and which is totally cool. And then you hit a point where it's like, you know what? I need to change. I've got some problems that aren't getting better. I've got some challenges. Perhaps you got married. Perhaps you have kids. Perhaps you bought a property. Perhaps you're trying to build a property. Perhaps you're a doctor and you've run into challenges. Perhaps your practice isn't shifting. You can see improvements, but they're not making them. And you don't know how to get the practice manager to do things. Many problems. I don't know what your particular problems are. Here's the thing. When you work out how to solve one problem, you know how to solve all problems. Because all problems fit the same solution framework. And that's what you really want. That's what I really have worked out with Garrett's stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, what you've been doing this whole time is a framework. And when I got the framework, I'm like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. This is a framework for growth, a framework for expansion, a framework that can work. It's been proven to work. Not just Garrett, not just me, but hundreds and thousands of people have used a framework that works. You can get access to that as well over at Clinical Certainty at GraduateMedicine.com. Is it worth finding out? Well, I don't know. It depends on where you're at. Depends how many problems you got. Depends what you think is coming down the pipe. Me? I tend to think our world's getting a little bit crazy. A little bit intense. If you haven't seen these signs, you really may have your head in the ground. They're there. AI, American election, falling away of Western democracy, rise of obscure political beliefs to become dominant. People are struggling. People are like, what is going on in the world? This isn't the world of the 70s. This isn't the world of the 90s. This isn't even the world of the 2010s. We are in an accelerated, compressive experience. And if you don't have the tools that can get you through this, then it's likely that you will be at risk of serious difficulties. My take on it? I've been on a spiritual path for a while. I know where I'm putting my faith. I'm putting my faith in spirit, in God, in whatever you want to call it, Bob, if you will, whatever runs this entire show. And it's not a pathway that's been exposed much to doctors before. And it's a difficult path for us because we're so logical and so rational. And yet there is this aspect of life that is spiritual. And there are tools and mindsets and skill sets that can leverage that. And you'll find them in Clinical Certainty. So if this message is resonating with you, if you're watching this still at this point, I suggest to you that there is something in your soul calling to you, that perhaps it is time for you to say, you know what, I need to learn about this stuff. So if that's you, head over to GraduateMedicine.com, click the link to Clinical Certainty. I look forward to joining you, or you joining me, in that conversation. It's a powerful conversation. It's one that's cost me a lot of time and effort, difficulty, and yet it has been extraordinarily worth it. All right, that's all I got for you. I hope you're having an awesome night. I look forward to seeing you another live very soon.